Okay, that wasn't quite 60 seconds, but I think everybody who was going to get logged in has probably logged in at this point. So I think we'll go ahead and kick things off. Well, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, as the case may be, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Alan, and my colleague Generosa and I are here today to chat with you a little bit about Gatsby, the fastest front end for the headless web. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. If you have any questions that come up during the webinar today, please feel free to add those to the Q&A panel here, and we will either address them directly in the webinar or we'll try to follow up with a written response in the Q&A panel. The other thing I'll mention is that this webinar is being recorded, so everybody's going to receive a follow-up message. It usually takes a few days once the recording is processed and we add captions to it and things like that. So it takes a few days, but you will receive a recording of this webinar. So rest assured, if there's something that comes up in the middle, you'll have the recording that you can reference down the road. So let's take a quick minute to go over what we're going to cover during the webinar today. So we'll start off kind of covering some core Gatsby concepts and features. We're going to talk about some foundational things that make Gatsby the best choice for building a performant, content-driven website with your team. And after we do that, we're going to dive into Gatsby Cloud, and we're going to explore how it's the best platform for building and hosting and scaling your Gatsby site. So we'll talk about connecting it to a version control system. We'll look at things like previewing, collaborating together. It'll be a lot of fun. So here's a question for us as we get started. Why have thousands of websites chosen Gatsby, right? Why do companies, small and large, whether they're in certain verticals or industries, or whether they're building sites for themselves or possibly for their clients, why do these people choose Gatsby? Well, if we had to distill it down to one core principle, I think what we would say is that Gatsby makes the hard parts of building websites just simpler for you. There are so many things you have to figure out when you're building a website, and your developers and your content editors have to figure these things out, right? You have to make decisions. You have to find solutions for all sorts of tricky problems when you're building a site. And Gatsby helps you focus on the work that you and your team are most excited about by taking care a lot of those repetitive parts, those hard parts that are tricky, so that you don't have to, so you can focus on the things that you want to focus on. Just to give you a few examples, right? We talk about performance. Static sites are naturally more performant on their own, but Gatsby takes that a step further. It has features like image optimization and code splitting and lazy loading. All these things help with your core web vitals, your site performance, your search ranking. Scalability, right? You don't have to worry as much about things like load balancing and database replication. And if you're using Gatsby Cloud, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, your static files in your static site get deployed to a CDN where where folks can access your site globally from an edge network. Let's talk a little bit about security, right? Static sites have a much smaller attack surface for would-be attackers, we'll say. And that's because the parts of your site that users interact with are naturally decoupled from the administrative interfaces and the data sources themselves. And that makes it much more difficult for your site to breach. So a Gatsby site is going to be naturally more secure than a traditional monolithic site. And I know we talked about data sources just now. Let's kind of dig into that, because I think data sourcing in particular, it's part of what makes Gatsby, for lack of a better word, to me, magical in a sense, because there's this huge, rich ecosystem of data sourcing plugins for Gatsby. And these plugins abstract a lot of the details and nuances of working with all these various APIs where you may have data living in CMSs and third-party systems. It abstracts all of that logic, so you can focus on pulling the data you need and making sure it gets to your website. But the truth is, it's not just your site that Gatsby helps improve. It actually helps improve the process of building your site. Gatsby makes it easier for developers and marketers, think of these as content editors, content creators, makes it easy for these teams to work together to build incredible websites. So Generosa is here. Generosa, you work a lot on the development side of things. Is that right? Oh, I think you might be muted.
Yeah, I'm muted. Sorry. Yes, I do. Yeah, and it's so nice to be working in the Gatsby framework and Gatsby Cloud together, because we could collaborate. When I do a pull request, it comes to Gatsby Cloud, and I can even see what my page looks like, so I can share it with the team, and that way they can review my changes, seeing it, how it compares to production. So that's a really nice way to make it to be working in Gatsby, and especially Gatsby Cloud.
For sure. And I know that, like, when you're working on, say, templates and writing code and stuff, I know on my side, I do a lot of, I work in marketing. So I tend to do a lot of, I spend a lot of time in Contentful and WordPress, right? All sorts of CMSs. And I tend to be focused on what's going to fill up these pages. And if the structure is changing of these pages, like, that's kind of difficult to reconcile a lot of times,
right?
At least in other systems, it is for me. And so I think it's really interesting to be able to collaborate in this way, because I can make my changes on my end, and you can make your changes on your end, and it's almost like we're altering the structure and the content of the page at the same time, and kind of working together on that. And historically, that has been a huge challenge, especially in monolithic systems. You have one team kind of like limiting
each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Typically, I have to wait. I have to publish your changes for you, and it bothers me, because I'd rather just focus on the code, and you're like, all right. But now you have the power to publish your changes without me. So that's really nice.
Yeah, it's definitely nice. And then the other thing that we can point out here too is that, in addition to helping us work better together, I mean, Gatsby, and specifically Gatsby Cloud, when our site is deployed on Gatsby Cloud, it's going to serve that website in the most efficient, fastest way possible for people, and I think that says a lot. So we talked a lot about static sites, right? Static site generation is one way of rendering these pages, but Gatsby, what a lot of people don't necessarily know is that Gatsby doesn't just do static site generation. We also have, what you might consider traditional server-side rendering, where content is rendered on request when somebody's browser visits a page. Their browser sends a request off to a web server. The web server renders that content and delivers it back to the web browser. And then Gatsby also supports this kind of hybrid rendering called deferred static generation, or deferred static rendering. And that's where you can specify certain paths or certain pages that you only want to render the first time somebody requests it. And so when that happens, that very first visitor requests the page, it gets built and cached, and then it's served just like a statically generated page would be. So Generosa, I know that you have worked a lot with all three of these rendering methods. Should we take a little bit of time and kind of walk through each of these? I think that would be helpful, because it's helpful to kind of see them in action, I think.
Yeah. So let me share my screen.
Oh, how do I do this?
No, I think I can just
can you?
stop. All right. So I'm showing a website called Simply Shapes. Are you seeing that?
I'm seeing that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So basically, we talked about these two methods of rendering sites. So deferred static generation, server-side rendering. So server-side rendering is what we all know, traditional. And so we do have that rendering mode. Here's an example. So this page here called new, basically this page hits a recipe API and then renders this random recipe on the fly. So if I refresh the page, it's going to be a different recipe. So the way that looks in code, can you validate that you're seeing my code editor, Alan?
I see your code editor.
Yeah, perfect. So basically what we added in the latest version of Gatsby, which is Gatsby 4, we added this capability of, server-side rendering. And basically we're using this function, get server data. This is what allows you to hit that API from Spoonacular. And basically this is very simple code. You just fetch the code, and then, the response is then fed to the component in React. So that's, traditional server-side rendering. Well, deferred static generation, I think, is what I'm really excited about. Let me find an example here. So again, in our recipe site, I have a blog page here. And as we know, blogs could be, a couple years worth. So why do I have to render blogs that are maybe older than, June of this year or last year? So the way this page is set up is all blogs that are June 25 and earlier are deferred. So from my fourth post, since it's June 23, these are all deferred. So if I click on it, you see there's a little bit of a delay right there. I mean, it's not rendering immediately, because what happens is, Gatsby is fetching it from the server. So you saw there's a little delay there, but it's going to be cached. So if I hit on this again, it's right there because it's already getting it from the cache. So the way it looks in code basically is we've added this config function that basically allows you to query your data and tell, in this instance anyway, I'm querying the data and saying, give me all of the blog posts that are June 25 and earlier. And basically I'm telling Gatsby to defer all of those posts that have a date of June 25 and earlier. And so this is the code behind it. And you saw the demo, how it renders. So that's the two new rendering modes. So give the screen back to you, Alan.
All right. Thank you so much for walking through those. I think it's super helpful to be able to kind of see it in action like that.
Yeah.
All right. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah, especially the deferred static generation. I think it's, if you think about a site, right, that has tens of thousands of pages on it, the time it would take to build all of that at once. I mean, I think that's huge to be able to build those pages on demand. And it was pretty quick, I think, just rendering it right there as you requested it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So let's talk about Gatsby Cloud, right? Gatsby Cloud is the platform for delivering the best Gatsby experiences. So you can build a Gatsby site and you can host it in a number of different ways, number of different places, but Gatsby Cloud is a platform that is tailor-made for Gatsby sites. And it's engineered to deliver those sites efficiently and very, very fast. If you haven't already, you can sign up for a Gatsby Cloud account today. There's a link here in the slides. You can visit gatsbyjs.com, and there's a button in the corner of the website where you can sign up for an account on Gatsby Cloud. So let's
should I show people how to sign up?
Let's do that. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. All right, let me just show people how to sign up. So just, are you seeing gatsbyjs.com?
Yes.
Alan? Yeah. So perfect. So to sign up, just go to gatsbyjs.com, hit sign up for free. Fill in the form. It's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to do it very quickly. United States, California, and I'll just do personal project. So I already have an account. So you're seeing this authorized with GitHub. If you've done this for the first time, you would not get this screen. You would get a screen where it says, authorized with whoever your provider is, and then you would see a page where it asks for permission, and there you could tell Gatsby Cloud to access all your repositories or just some of the repositories. So after that process is done, you're going to get a workspace, which in this case, it's called Gatsby Sales. So that's what you can expect when you sign up for a cloud account. I'll stop sharing, and Alan, back to you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and that's super cool that it links to it links everything together with your GitHub account or your GitLab account, whatever the case may be, whatever OAuth provider you're using. And I think that just kind of streamlines things. It's one of those little niceties, I think, that makes it easier down the road when you have to source that the commits from that repository. So let's chat a little bit about Gatsby Cloud, right? So we try to break it down into kind of 4 phases, right? Gatsby Cloud makes it easy to create websites with your team, to collaborate on those sites as you make changes. Generosa and I chatted a little bit about that already. We talk about the different user roles that are involved in that. Gatsby Cloud makes it super easy to deliver that content and in a very fast, efficient way. And Gatsby Cloud also makes it easy to organize that work as well. So if you are on a team that serves maybe multiple clients, or if you have lots of sites that you are responsible for, Gatsby Cloud helps you organize those sites in a very efficient way as well. So let's kind of break that down a little bit further. We mentioned this a little bit already. There's a huge ecosystem of plugins available from the Gatsby community for everything from sourcing data from different APIs, different data sources, transforming content from one form to another. There's things like image optimization plugins that help you serve images efficiently. We also have starters that make it easy to get a site up and running with Gatsby if you want to have like a simple proof of concept for somebody on your team to take it and say, hey, this is a framework, this is a platform that could work for what we're trying. Try out those starters, right? That is a great way to get started with Gatsby, to show all the different things that it can do. It makes it easier to collaborate on content. Now, Generosa, did we want to work through the contentful collaboration here? I can't remember what we wanted to do.
Yeah, I can show that when I do the demo, so you can you can keep going.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Yeah.
It streamlines that process of collaboration, right? So we have a CMS preview that gets generated with builds where maybe content editors on your team are focused on what the pages look like as their content updates. They have a dedicated environment where they can go look at those changes. And maybe the developers on your team are concerned with what the site itself is structured like or how it performs. And with every pull request, we generate a build for those pull requests as well, so you can see those in action. Makes it easy to deliver your site efficiently. So when you host a site through Gatsby Cloud, we build your site very fast and we deliver it on an edge network that is globally distributed. It eliminates scalability issues. We have, I don't remember the number right offhand, tons of points of presence around the globe. I don't want to give the wrong number here, but it's a lot. And it also makes it easy to organize that work. And this is especially handy if you are working on a team that's maybe in an agency environment, or maybe you work in a large organization that has lots of individual sites that have different purposes. You can manage all of those sites on Gatsby Cloud by organizing them into different organizations and different sites. And you can manage that all from one single account. So those are the 4 phases, basically: creating, collaborating, delivering, and organizing all of the things that make your site performant and efficient and fast.
Yep, awesome.
So I think the next thing here is a quick demo of how to work through. Is it Contentful, right? Right.
Yeah, I'll talk about all of the things you just said: creating, organizing. I forget the 4, but those things. And I'll talk about also 2 workflows: a developer workflow and content marketer workflow. Our workflows that we do. So let me actually share my screen. So let me do that. So let's see. Are you seeing Gatsby Sales? Or...
Yep, I'm seeing the Gatsby Sales. I see the dashboard.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So basically, we talked about organizing. So you have your workspace that you use to organize. So when you get a Gatsby Cloud account, the first thing you'll do is you have to name your workspace. So that's how this one is called Gatsby Sales. You can see here in the drop down, I have several workspaces. So this is how I collaborate with different teams. But if you're an agency, your workspace could be, your client name. And then you could have several sites within your workspace that are maybe different environments. You could have a staging, QA, production environment for your client. That's typically how we see customers use our site. And then within your workspace, you have your members here. You can give them different roles, editor, viewer, owner, administrator. And here in the settings, you can see the plan that your workspace has. So that's what you'll get. Now let's do create. Let's actually add a site. So you simply just follow this user interface. So since I was authenticated to GitHub, it's using that to find my repository, or I could actually just use a Gatsby starter. Let's say I didn't have a site up yet. I could create my site, either one or the other. I'm going to use GitHub. So I'm just going to go to one of my accounts here. And I want to see if there is a Gatsby site here. Actually, let me use the CS site. I want to use a different one. Let's see, it's finding it. Maybe I'll just stick to mine because I think, okay, let me just use this one. Let me just use this site here. So basically what happens then is Gatsby will just put a site name, but you can really call it whatever you want. And then you just tell Gatsby what branch you'd like it to build from. So I'm just going to use master or main, doesn't really matter. And then the root folder here is where is your Gatsby configuration file set up? Typically it's in the root, but some other, if you're using a Gatsby theme, for example, or using other CMSs, your structure might be different. But in my case, it's in the root folder. So then I'll click next. So what's going to happen now is Gatsby is going to look for integrations. So since it looks at Gatsby config, it saw that I had a Contentful integration. So if I hit connect, I'll just need to authorize it. Let's see, let's just do test, for example. Let's just go to Sid Space, an old friend of ours. And basically it's gonna, what's happening now is Gatsby's going to get all of the API keys from this space. So that's basically what's going on. And yeah, so then it got all the environment variables. So it didn't really add it yet. So the next step would be to add these environment variables and then build the site. I'm not going to do that now because I don't want to go through that process. It's just going to take a little more time than we need. But that's as simple as it to create. So then next, let's go through a developer workflow in Gatsby Cloud. So I have a built site here running Contentful. And what we see here is your dashboard. And here we have our production site. This is the URL for the production. That's the one being served from all those points of presence that Alan spoke about. And then down here, you notice there are several pull requests. So as developers, we typically, we don't want to, when we're building features, we don't want to build against the production branch. We always have our own branch where we add features or we do fixes. So here, this is how we collaborate. We all work on our branches, and then we can, when we send in a pull request, we can actually see how these our changes or our features compare to the production branch. So that's a really nice capability of collaboration. And if one of these pull requests are approved and things are done, you just go through your typical workflow, in GitHub, and you just say, you know what, I want to, merge this pull request. So this one I can't merge because it's got conflicts, but you get the gist. I mean, we merge it. Once that's merged in Gatsby Cloud, you're going to get a new production build that has those merge requests, the merge. So that's a really nice feature within Gatsby Cloud. The other thing too that often happens with developers is that you send out a production build of a site that has all the new messaging, but then things change, strategies change, and you want to revert to previous build. So that's something you can do also in Gatsby Cloud. If you just look at our production history, we can merge or we can revert to a previous build. So maybe I want to, do one from March 1st. All I have to do to go back to that previous version is to hit publish. And then now I'm back to it in Gatsby Cloud. It will not revert in code. So just know that you would have to revert it in the code itself. But from a production publishing perspective, it is reverted back. So that's a typical developer workflow. I'm going to switch gears now and go through a content workflow, like similar to what Alan goes through on a daily basis. So basically, Gatsby Cloud decouples, the developer workflow and the content workflow, so each person can really work independently and not have to, step on each other's toes. So one thing for this content workflow, what I'm going to go through is how a content creator is able to stay within their environment. In this case, it's the Contentful CMS. How they can continue working from there to publish and preview and fix content that maybe has gone out without their consent. So in this page, we can see there is a piece of content here that was published by accident. It doesn't have the content yet, and the image is wrong. So, you're in a panic, like, what do you do? Typically back in the day without Gatsby Cloud, this is gonna, you'd have to open a ticket in whatever workflow, and it's gonna probably take a couple of days. But we can fix this very quickly. So as a content creator, I'm gonna go to Contentful. This is the Contentful space that has the wrong content. So first thing I can do is actually just change. Let me remove my image and add a new one. And then let me actually find the actual right content for this. Let me just check this here. I always miss that. When I think I have that content, I don't. So if I don't find it in, oh, here we go. Gatsby 101 content. Okay, this is the real content that should go here. So now I know, okay, I fixed, this is the content, this is the image. Before I publish it, let's actually preview this page. And so as you can see, this is the current page, and Gatsby's saying, oh, it's building a new preview. So one thing, that's great. The page has been updated. Let's view the changes. So here now, okay, this is the page. This is how it should look like. I was able to preview it. I'm confident this is the right one. But you know what? Let me share it with the team. Just make sure they're all seeing it the same way. Okay, I shared with them. Everybody's happy. Let's publish this. So again, all of this without having developers or anything, any other intervention from other people. As a content creator, this is the space I am comfortable in. I published it. Let's take a look at Gatsby Cloud and check to see how things are going. So data was updated in Contentful. Let's see, let's check our site. There it is. So right now, this, we fixed what was inadvertently published. And again, all done without developer intervention. So that's the demo, Alan. So I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back to you.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much for walking through that. That example is especially relevant to me because I have been in that exact situation where I have to get something published quickly. But in my case, I was working with the developer team. We had shipped the wrong image or something, and it took a while to coordinate all the resources. Whereas something like this would have been great to update the content and just have it automatically deployed. That would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so cool. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to put my other screen back up here. We're just about, I think we're a little bit over time here. And I want to pause for any questions. It doesn't look like we had any questions that came in. But I do want to be mindful of anybody who had anything here at the end, just in case anybody had any questions. But otherwise, we can end our webinar here. Any questions?
Yeah, I would encourage everyone who attended, just, if you don't have a Gatsby account, just start one. You can set up a free account for one user. Start playing with it. It's very powerful. So
yeah, it's very cool. All right, so it doesn't look like we have any questions. Well, thank you all so much for coming to our webinar today, and we'll go ahead and end things here. But please feel free to drop us a line if you have any questions.
Right.
All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you. See you later. Bye.
Bye.